building consensus and talking about telling the stories internally and externally. What we do, we work on the farm and we do go out and we do education. But the thing that I found really interesting from all of this is, for us, we're trying to create a message where it's not just my story and my section of land. How are these stories our stories? And even when the woman was talking about the immigration on Long Island and making us all, bring all of us in to these, it's not an immigration story out there, it's all of our stories, and building that community, a bigger community. So you just brought me to that place, and I just thought it was really interesting on how we can take these private stories and then make them collective stories. And I would love to be able to do that.
For us, for our experience of just even our farm, you know, most people think of our work as very seasonal. They don't see us as something that's going on all year long. And so for us, what we've been really trying to do is find ways to keep people engaged with us all year long. Because what we found is we set up a Facebook page and people were interested in utilizing the Facebook page while they were out working at the farm. And then when the season ended, it sort of dried up. So how do we keep that piece going? And one thing that's helped us, which has been actually constant contact for me, when we started at the farm, we used to do these hand newsletters that we would put out, and people would pick them up, and sometimes they would take them, sometimes they wouldn't. And what we actually did find was that a digital way of reaching out to people all year long, keeping them connected all year long, really helped us quite a bit. And so this past week, we had an event, and it's something we've been trying to build on every year, which we call our Spring Awakening. And we try to do something that's not necessarily about the farm, but about issues that we care about. So we brought a woman named Margie Swedish, who has made a pilgrimage to the tar sands of Alberta, and she came with film and discussed it with over 100 people. We drew in over 100 people to this one event. And so that's what we're trying to do, is broaden our base. For us, it's very interesting to me, one of the themes that run through our work is having a sense of place, the need to have a sense of place. And as Christine was saying, our place is the farm, but our place is all of Long Island, and all of us share it together. And that's really what we're working on, and trying to find means to do this consistently all year long.
Any other thoughts or interjections? A lot of interesting.
Yeah, I was making notes as we were talking, and I think just some really, again, given the uniqueness of what each of you is doing, there are different challenges in communicating similar messages. For instance, you know, you encounter issues of how to share sensitive material, or you deal with issues of ethicality in publicizing stories that people have shared in a very perhaps in a very intimate moment. And how do you take that step? And I think many of us in the room deal with these issues all the time. Documentary filmmakers, there's two students in the room who will relate to those issues of how, when you approach somebody, you're taking a story from them and you're incorporating that story in amongst other stories. In a sense, you're taking a piece of what they are offering you and making it your own. And I think some of the processes that we are talking about today perhaps can help to address how people take control of how to tell their story and even how to share it. And I think I love the examples of voluntarily being able to tell your immigrant story as a way to share. Those that are able to tell the story and are able to make the story public can perhaps give courage to those. And one of you mentioned this whole idea of how to get people to have courage to tell their story. Because most of us think our stories are ordinary. We do this high school workshop that Evan was talking about earlier on. We bring 10 high school kids from the metropolitan New York area for a 5-week summer program at Hofstra. And oftentimes we find kids who are listening to stories of somebody from Haiti whose house was destroyed in the earthquake and they happen to come here, and then they look at their own life and saying, how do I even match that? My story is so boring. It is so nothing compared to that because I haven't had the same travails and so on. The fact is that when they start looking at their stories, they find out. And we had this brilliant student who was paired with a Haitian student, and she started to look at her own life, and she came up with this amazing way to tell the story of how she was bullied because of body image. And she was a little overweight in school, and how that led her to think about there was a centrality to that story. And it's that process of looking for the story can be a very vital part of what we are trying to get out of it, here as well. So thank you all for sharing. And I think I want to take some of these messages and some of these conversations and move on to seeing how the communities are trying to address these very same issues. And what are some of the examples of how people have used all different forms of media, not just electronic media, but whatever was appropriate and available, whether it was newsletters, whether it was postcards, writing letters, traditional media, and combining them to make it fit their needs. Because after all, communities have to decide what media is appropriate for them to use and available for them to use.
Can I add something to